So, good morning, everyone. I was here 5 years ago. Was anyone in the congregation? Mm-hmm. Okay, do you remember everything I said? I was very enchanted with the community here and very happy to be back, so thank you for having me back. A lot of water under the bridge in 5 years as the world turns, so here we go, and everyone's awake? Ready, set. Reading first. The civilization we live in at present is a gigantic structure, a skyscraper almost high enough to reach the moon. It looks like a single worldwide event, but really it's a deadlock of rivalries. It looks very impressive, except that it has no humanity. For all its wonderful machinery, we know it's really a crazy, ramshackle building, and at any time may crash around our ears. These are the words of Northrop Frye from The Educated Imagination, written in 1963. It sounds a little bit, I think, like the world we live in. I love the expression, a deadlock of rivalries. And so we have all of this division on the planet. It looks very impressive, but it has no humanity. And for all its wonderful machinery, it may come crashing down at any time. Very poignant words. Frye organizes his thoughts around the myth, the story of the Tower of Babel found in the Old Testament. That story was set in Babylon in Mesopotamia. The people of the earth had become skilled in construction and decided to build a city with a tower that would reach to heaven. The people were building a monument to themselves to call attention to their abilities and achievements. The builders wanted to make a name for themselves. The tower was a grandiose project, the ultimate man-made achievement. God perceived their intentions and knew that this stairway to heaven would only lead people away from God. And to prevent further arrogance, God confused their language. They spoke many different languages and did not understand each other, and they were scattered across the face of the earth. Originally, the people had one language, the myth says, not the language of words, but the language of the human spirit. Writes Frye, this language never speaks unless we take the time to listen in leisure, and it speaks only in a voice too quiet for panic to hear. And then all it has to tell us when we look over the edge of our leaning tower is that we are not getting any nearer to heaven and that it is time to return to earth. With all of the incredible advances that have been made in science and technology, I have long wondered why the evolution of spiritual consciousness has been so sluggish. Why are we so blind to the truth of life? Why are we so slow to learn the truth that will set us free? This question also puzzled Gerald Hurd writing over 80 years ago. Hurd equated this to an increase of power and a decrease of purpose. With the acceleration of invention, there is a surge of technical power, yet at the same time a collapse of ethics, a loss of vision and purpose. Human progress in science and technology is making us more and more powerful, yet our visionary fire is dying. Hurd put forth a striking image that if you keep increasing the load on the port side of the ship, you must also put an equal weight on the starboard. Otherwise, the ship is in peril. it's listing and it's in danger of tipping and sinking. In a nutshell, Hurd was saying that we have what he called power without purpose. Our increased power weighs down the port side. Our decrease of purpose makes the starboard side lighter. As the Leaning Tower of Babel, the ship lists to one side and inevitably will sink. In today's world, we have so much knowledge that is not guided by love. We are inflated with new power, but know not how to apply it in order to guide right action. Power, so very often, is used for wrong purposes. That is, in service of the ego. And in today's world, we have a naive optimism, believing in scientific progress as an end in itself. The most unique and disturbing feature of this spiritual degeneration is that it finds itself armed with the colossal will to power and with almost unlimited facilities for implementing its brutal aspirations. Thus, 20th century man who mistakenly imagines himself to be standing on the peak of civilized development, since he confuses technology with civilization, does not realize that he has in reality reached a point of moral and spiritual disorganization. He is a savage, armed not with a club or a spear, but with the most sophisticated arsenal of diabolical engines, weapons, to which new inventions are added every week. Another author that I was reading last week spoke as Hurd, power without purpose. He said, knowledge without wisdom. And he said it is wisdom which gives us principles that guide the right use of knowledge. So now we could ask the question, what is wisdom? Can you think of a person or persons in your life that you consider wise? What qualities characterize their lives? A big question, where does wisdom come from? How do we grow in wisdom consciousness? Wisdom is a big word that can be defined in so many different ways. It is the knowledge, I think, that brings us into an awareness of our true nature and into the recognition of our essential self. Beyond ego striving, it's knowledge that teaches the mind and the heart to open. And what I mean by this, the mind becomes attuned to the intelligence of the universe, and the heart opens to a larger love. That intelligence and love reside within our very essence. These are the energies of life pouring into us and through us. A river of deep body, mind, spirit intelligence guides one's realization of meaning, allows one's true purpose to breathe. As human beings, we yearn for more truth, more beauty, more love. Truth sets us free. Beauty, says Dostoevsky, saves the world, and love is who we are. Wisdom invites us to transform ego striving into loving kindness. Our very freedom lies in defeating the ambitions of the assertive ego. In order to achieve this, I think what's needed is a long conversation with wisdom. As we listen to its voice and receive its instruction, we find deep freedom. And our task is to become open to receive truth. Wisdom in the Christian tradition is considered a gift of the Holy Spirit. Wisdom is always pushing us toward greater life, asking us to identify our true path of meaning, and of course asking us to commit ourselves to following it. On one hand, it is necessary to find a still point away from the noise of the external world. It is through inwardness, through a vigorous practice of self-presence and self-inquiry, that we come to recognize who we truly are. As we discover a larger truth of self, we learn that we are not who we have taken ourselves to be. Practices like mindfulness and meditation bring us into a greater depth of self-knowledge, as well as greater equanimity. On the other hand, we must go outward as well as inward to learn from those who have gone before us and who have much hard-won wisdom to share. We draw forth wise insight, deep wisdom from the inspired inquiry of scientists and scholars, from the talent of writers and artists, from storytellers, from the achievement of athletes, from the teachings of spiritual guides and healing practitioners, from philosophers and poets and psychologists. Two vectors. So wisdom comes both as a gift and from a labor of inquiry. Even as we work to become more wise, we need to be open to receive new truth that is gratuitously given. The first 1,000 voices of wisdom in the Noble River trilogy is an excerpt from the book Reliance by Ralph Waldo Emerson. Here is what he says about wisdom. Place yourself in the middle of the stream of power and wisdom which flows into you as life. Place yourself in the full center of that flood. Then you are, without effort, impelled to truth, to right, and a perfect contentment. Here Emerson makes 4 key points. He says wisdom flows into us as life. We experience more aliveness. Then he says, place yourself in the middle of the stream, surround yourself, and this I would translate as surround yourself with people of high consciousness. The flow pushes in the direction of truth. We are carried forward effortlessly. That flow leads to a perfect contentment. Other voices speak to this power, this promise of wisdom. The Dhammapada, Buddhist collection of sayings, tells that wisdom overcomes the sorrows of life. Otherwise stated, the poet Tagore describes wisdom as pure joy, for it leads to the infinite. In the Old Testament scripture, the book of Proverbs speaks of the gain of wisdom as better than silver and gold. And one more voice, the monk Lama Suradas writes that wisdom is a means to transcend craving and to transform a treadmill existence into a lovely, inspiring garden walk. Life never stands still. It is continuous movement. In the world of form, everything comes and goes, appears, and then disappears. Indeed, there is no permanence. Life's endless summons to transformation, as Chris read, asks us to live more consciously, more creatively, more compassionately. Obedience to that summons gives life its energetic momentum. Our lives know a momentum of change that takes us over countless thresholds of change. The law of change tells us that life is always pushing us toward greater life, towards greater possibility. It is our deep desire for more aliveness that gives rise to this thrust forwards. Otherwise stated, an inner longing for wholeness drives the human journey, and it is that longing that energizes transformation. We long to transcend limitations, to realize freedom, to realize true peace, to realize a larger love. Joseph Campbell said that the hero's journey is a life lived in self-discovery. What motivates a journey? Passion, eros, longing, desire, our hope to be set free from burdens of darkness, entrapment, emotional confinements. A journey is born in the gap between, and these are words of Fry, the world we live in and the world we want to live in. Indeed, we must always be ready to begin anew. The journey of self-discovery is a lifelong adventure. Like flowing water, we are purified by going forward. And we continually, this expression, outgrow our smaller selves. The way is often dark, moving beyond illusion and isolation, composting muddy emotions, deconstructing the ego, transforming fear into loving kindness. From becoming to becoming, we shape the unfolding of our lives. Personal transformation rests on what one makes of oneself. One cannot stay in a closed system of belief, of understanding, of vision. When thinking about what best contributes to the integrity of a journey to find one's hidden self, I jotted down 8 points. Having a grounded vision, being open to surprise, finding right direction, being on a journey that is oriented to value and meaning. Good companions make all the difference. Sound knowledge and skills, having a quality of awareness, and having the courage to face transformation. There was a line in your song, the strength to go inside, I think, the courage to face transformation. The Japanese poet Haruki Murakami writes, "Unclose your mind, you are not a prisoner, you are a bird in flight, searching the sky for dreams." Like birds in flight, we are invited to search for dreams of freedom. Life wants to be lived with noble intention that carries us to higher and higher levels of consciousness. Conversely, low intentions come from low consciousness. High intent seeks true value. It examines meanings. It responds to our deepest aspirations. As we focus on the true purpose of human existence, we are able to find sound direction in the movement of life. The way forward opens up and bestows a vision of what life can become when we discover a truth of meaning that rises above narrow, ego-made worlds. The ego has its own agenda, its own ambitious goals, based on a fiction of the separate self. And I think this is what in the Tower of Babel, one says the people were scattered over the earth and couldn't understand each other. The ego does this. It divides us. And it is built on the consciousness of the separate self. Based on the fiction of the separate self, the ego makes becoming somebody special its aim. It attends to short-sighted self-interest and to transitory gratifications. But sooner or later, the ego runs out of steam. Thus, it is important to distinguish between ego, intent, and noble purpose. For noble purpose takes us into a world of limitless love, from the private to the common good, from pride of personal achievement to a generosity of spirit. It takes us from a consciousness of separateness to a consciousness of oneness. As we grow in the awareness that all of us are one, individual purpose finds congruence with the purpose of the whole. Noble intention engenders wonder and wisdom, compassion and loving kindness, equanimity and gratitude, to help create a world that we all long for, but which does not yet exist. Wonder asks the big question, what am I here to do? And with whom? Wisdom points to how one's life wants to be lived. It teaches what one's life can become. Individuals with low intention create narratives defined by powerlessness, entrapment, and limitation. They often take up the victim position. An unlived life is based upon the incapacity to imagine or believe in greater possibilities. This happens when one's drive to a larger life changes into a fear of life, into resistance, perhaps into depression. The question then arises, how do we ignite visionary fire? How do we move from ego identity to soul identity? How do we educate the spiritual imagination? Firstly, there's the task of disavowing inauthenticity. This is not achieved overnight. In fact, the journey into authenticity continues throughout a lifetime. The journey into authenticity. In Bernard Lonergan's words, it is ever a withdrawal from inauthenticity. The first instruction is to avoid trivial preoccupations and the squandering of energy. It is to avoid meaninglessness. Simply stated, don't waste life. The second instruction, be open to your hidden self. Listen deep. Parker Palmer says, before telling my life what I want to do with it, I must listen to my life telling me who I am. Tagged on to that is Joseph Campbell, who says we must get rid of the life that we have planned so as to have the life that is waiting for us. A third instruction. Remember that the task of identifying and following meaning lies at the heart of the human adventure. True meaning is awakened at the soul level where the energies of life pour through us. Our primary goal is not to make money, but to make meaning. What you need will be given. Trust life. The fourth instruction then is share your light with everyone. Follow a path of purpose dedicated to something larger than yourself. That path leads us into the recognition of our intrinsic goodness and asks us to express that goodness in a world steeped in darkness. As we find joy, we are commissioned to bring joy to a sorrowful world. We are called to manifest love where there is hatred, justice where there is inequality and discrimination, forgiveness where vengeance prevails, and generosity where there is greed and grasping. Jacob Needleman puts forth that a key obstacle based on a poverty of self-knowledge is hooking into an attraction to a false and incomplete picture of one's possibilities. Don't wait too long to become who you really want to be. Beyond the limited ego, each of us is invited to dare our dreams. We are invited to yield to the unknown, wherein are found possibilities not yet imagined. Each of our lives is a silent promise. The cost of stepping into the unknown is rewarded with the unimagined delight of becoming true to self. The vision that guides us is born in seeds of potentiality from deep within the mystery of our being. The soul fire of the universe is love. To conclude, we have an amazing power to transform our lives. It is one's confidence in higher possibility that enables a visionary leap. Thomas Merton, a Trappist monk, said, "Love is my true identity. Selflessness is my true self. Love is my true character. Love is my name." I love the book Jonathan Livingston's Seagull, where its author Richard Bach tells the story of a gull who sought a vocation beyond mere survival. A gull who sought the perfection of his flying skills. Jonathan practiced and practiced, at times failed, yet persevered. Once he had attained a certain level of mastery, he went back to his fellow gulls and exhorted them to higher potential. Jonathan said, "How much more there is now to living. Instead of our drab slogging forth and back to the fishing boats, there is a reason to life. We can lift ourselves out of ignorance. We can find ourselves as creatures of excellence and intelligence and skill. We can be free. We can learn to fly." May the fire of love burn within our hearts. Thank you.